Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health Podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wild Health Podcast. Mike Mallin here. This podcast today is going to be another version of Wild Health Voices, where we have someone from the Wild Health team on to talk a little bit about themselves and their approach to health and all that fun, interesting stuff. Today we have Trei Tackett. Trei is one of our amazing health coaches. Trei's been with us since the very beginning. Trei, I don't even know what your title is right now. You've had so many different titles with us. I just call him in charge. But Trei, tell us a little bit about what you do here at Wild Health and how you got started with us.
Let's just start with my journey with Wild Health. I came on early as soon as we started the company. I didn't have a title then because we were a startup and we all kind of did everything. I'm a nurse by training, became a nurse practitioner and health coach while working with Wild Health. I've been in operations, education with our precision medicine training program, and currently work in our premium program as the lead health coach, I guess, is the title. I don't really know that for sure either, Mike. Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
I'm glad we're both clear on that. Yeah, happy to have you on, man. How did you get started in medicine in the first place, and what were you doing before Wild Health?
Yeah, so I guess it goes back, I don't know, probably most of my life that I knew I was going to do something in medicine or health. My mom was a nurse and very blessed to have had her teach me about the importance of food and nutrition. I come from a pretty poor upbringing in Eastern Kentucky, and there was a lot of, problems with health and nutrition there. There's a lot of diabetes and smoking and alcohol consumption and things of that nature. I love where I'm from, but it wasn't the most ideal picture of health to grow up there. And Mom taught my sister and I a lot about the benefits of whole foods and eating seasonally. We raised a garden. And so, from a very early age, I understood where, my food came from and how that nutrition impacted my health. I was passionate about sports, and I thought maybe athletic training early on. I did athletic training in high school. But then I had an opportunity to go to a college, and this is kind of a funny story. It's Kentucky Christian University. At the time, they had about 4 degrees that you could make money, and one was teaching and one was nursing. And I was like, well, I guess I'll do nursing. So that's really where the decision was made, and it didn't have a lot of thought behind it. Everybody else kind of plans out their career and things like that. I just picked the best degree I thought that I could make money early on with, to be frank. But then I got into nursing, and I was very passionate about helping people. And I went into the emergency department at the University of Kentucky, where I saw a lot of chronic illness. I enjoyed working kind of in trauma, where we were able to fix people immediately and get them back on their feet, get them to surgery, whatever the case was. But the thing that drove me crazy was, the diabetic illness, where, somebody's losing a leg because their sugar has been uncontrolled for years and they keep coming back and they're impossible to get IVs on, and they're in, diabetic ketoacidosis, and they're on the kind of edge of life there, and you save them, but they didn't really get the care that they needed to improve long term. So I went back to school to become a family nurse practitioner, going to primary care. I wanted to help people be able to educate them on the front end, and still found in traditional medicine that was very difficult to do, to be able to get them the resources that they needed and to provide the education and motivation. And Wild Health was just a blessing because it came along right at the time where I was kind of disgruntled with healthcare. met Matt and was able to really do what I wanted to do in the first place, which was spend the amount of time I needed, have the resources available that myself and the patient needed to be able to make sustainable and lasting change for them.
Yeah, and so you're functioning now as a health coach with us, and you've been in that role. Gosh, you were employee number 2, right? I mean, basically since the very beginning. And I don't know, maybe technically 1. I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact details, but you've been there. Like, you were part of the OG clan for sure of taking care of patients with Matt and myself in the very early days. But you're more than just a health coach. You're a nurse practitioner. How have you found the difference in sort of practicing in that nurse practitioner role versus a health coaching role?
Yeah, I guess I would say I try to combine the strengths of both, honestly. I mean, I think if you're in a traditional setting where you're practicing as a nurse practitioner, obviously you have the role and responsibility that's going to come with that. But for my function as a health coach, I try to lean on my medical knowledge and training as much as I do the philosophy of coaching. We built out the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching approved curriculum for our training program. And through building that and working with our faculty members like Jen, I've just become even more convinced that the type of intervention you can do as a coach is just as powerful as what you can do as a clinician. And I think whenever you have knowledge in both areas, which is what our program does and what I pride myself on, is you can help the client make the decision and find the path that best fits what their motivations and desires are. But at the same time, on the back end what the science says and why they're doing it. And you can help reinforce those decisions and those choices that they're making with that medical knowledge.
Definitely. Yep. So just like everyone else on our team, Trey, you're a pretty healthy guy. I'm curious, have you always been as healthy as you are now, or did this come over time with age and wisdom?
I would say, high school athlete. At that time, I was really healthy. You go through college and you're busy as a nursing student, and you're, probably drinking more than you should, honestly. Doing a few other things that you're not working out as regularly as you should be. And then honestly, that was fine. It was my college years. I moved into night shift as an ER nurse, and that had a pretty big strain on my health. Not because I was, going out or doing anything crazy at the time. It was just really hard to get into a routine of health. You were, staying up all night and then trying to switch back to days. You didn't have any consistency. My nutrition really struggled. And whenever I'm under strain or stress like that, I typically lose weight rather than gain weight. I just eat less, don't work out, and lose muscle mass. And so that was a period of about 3 years where I kind of struggled with that to find routine. And it wasn't until I went back to days that I really was able to kind of get a handle on all of that. I've had, one funny thing, Mike, that we talked about was I was following the Matt Dawson diet, eating sardines every single day and beef liver, and ended up with an extraordinarily high uric acid level and actually a case of gout, which I thought was absurd, as healthy as I was at the time. At least I thought, exercising and eating organ meats. But looking at my genetics and my labs helped to kind of navigate that, because not everybody's the same.
So now that you're not eating sardines 4 times a day, you've managed to get your uric acid under control, I take it, and you've much healthier than you were back then.
Yeah, well, at least from a uric acid standpoint, yeah. Honestly though, it was a really cool experience because I was able to explore ways to lower uric acid for myself that's helped me with my clients, right? I had the knowledge about eating less purines, and that's helpful, right? You could just tell somebody, eat less of this, X, Y, and Z. But whenever you're actually practicing it, I was exploring ways to measure uric acid, and I found on Amazon there are, finger stick uric acid meters, like a finger stick blood glucose monitor. And not many people were aware of that, at least from the clinicians that I talked to. And by using that, checking it at various times of the day in response to certain meals, you can use it almost like a CGM. And so those types of trial and error, self-exploration journeys really help to improve your clinical practice, at least for me.
Tell us a little bit about uric acid, Trei. Let's take a quick segue into uric acid and why it's a bad thing, and how you've managed to reduce it, at least for yourself.
Yeah, I think most people think first and foremost of gout, right? I mean, you have gout, you have uric acid crystals in the joints that accumulate and it causes damage to the joints. Usually the first episode of gout is in the, most commonly in the great toe, but it can be, really any joint, thumbs, unilateral kind of burning pain. So that's the presentation of gout. But then just on a kind of more global level, higher levels of uric acid can do damage to the kidneys over time and also cause elevated blood pressure. So, if you're able to improve your uric acid to, kind of an optimal level of around 5 on average, if you're getting it checked regularly, you could actually lower blood pressure quite often. I think I've heard you talk about that a little bit too, Mike.
Little background: uric acid is found in tons of different foods. Foods that are high in purines are the ones that are most concerning. Those are the things that we think about the most. That includes things like alcohol, cheese, fish, meats, poultry. All those things have relatively high levels of uric acid in them. So one of the first things we think about doing is sort of changing diet and at least minimizing those foods. And then it sounds like what you were doing, Trei, was getting really specific and getting that finger stick uric acid meter and trying different foods and figuring out what's spiking your uric acid levels, so that you can sort of dial it down and make sure. And there's different genetic predispositions to having higher levels of uric acid. Some of us don't excrete it as well as others, and therefore we're at higher risk of having elevated uric acid, therefore higher risk of kidney disease, blood pressure, and then of course gout, which is the thing that everybody thinks about when they think about uric acid.
Yeah. And one thing that I found through that exploration was, finding nutritional alternatives to those like whole foods that are nutrient dense. So initially I was eating canned sardines. And so then I had to kind of explore canned salmon, canned mackerel to make sure I was getting the omega-3 I needed, just trial and error on different simple nutrition sources. Because for me, like many others, I think that are busy and on the move, having something that I can grab without having to prepare or go get it, or, just that's not highly processed is a high priority and high value add. So, exploring that, and then also to, thinking about where I'm getting my vitamin A from. I have a BCMO1 SNP, so I do need, the animal source, rather than just the red and orange veggies, that was a little bit more difficult because liver's the best source. So supplementation was the answer for me there.
Interesting. So when you switched over to canned salmon, other canned fish, did you see lower uric acid levels than you did with sardines?
Yeah, by far. I think the sardines, I was eating the whole sardine, right? So, bone in, skin on. And that was probably the biggest driver for me, that and beef liver, to be honest.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about some other ways that you stay healthy. You mentioned the challenge with working nights, with your sleep. How do you go about optimizing your own sleep personally?
Yeah. Well, this has actually been a quite the struggle for me too. Something that maybe I should have mentioned, as a health challenge is insomnia and getting to sleep. And I always, throughout my time before Wild Health and really kind of learning more about sleep architecture and the circadian rhythm, had tried to address it through behaviors leading into sleep. And I had some success with that, right? So, avoiding screen time, some of those sleep hygiene basics, moving into the evening, hot shower, restful environment, but as I continued to experiment, I realized that the morning is much more impactful for me. And if you've ever listened to an Andrew Huberman podcast, you've heard him say this like 100 times. It's morning sunlight exposure, delaying caffeine intake for about an hour after waking up, getting some exercise in the morning, and then, kind of throughout the day, it looks like stopping caffeine at noon. And then as the afternoon rolls in, just being in a place that mentally I'm preparing to wind down. So I usually really need to have kind of a hard stop on work. Otherwise, if I start to intermingle work responsibility with my evening family responsibilities, I find that it probably elevates my cortisol significantly. Is the takeaway, I'll have I wouldn't call them micro awakenings, but kind of jolting awakenings as I drift off to sleep. And I often find that is in conjunction with higher workloads when I'm trying to accomplish things in the evening that are stressful. And if I can separate the two and have a clear delineation between work and my, family responsibilities in the evening, it lowers my stress significantly and improves my sleep.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. The more email I do after dinner, or the more work I do on the computer after dinner, the more difficulty I have, one, going to sleep, and two, staying asleep. And that's exactly what you see with higher levels of cortisol, right? Is a difficulty initially initiating sleep. So you get these prolonged latency times, and then you get more nighttime awakenings. That's really, really common with higher cortisol levels. And yeah, big surprise, work raises our cortisol, right? Like no big aha moments there, but yeah, that's something that's definitely true.
Yeah. And for me, early on, it was a lot of trial and error with Oura Ring and looking at data and seeing what was impacting, like making notes on Oura, looking at my deep sleep early on, or how quickly my heart rate dropped early in the night, or just my architecture that they report as far as deep sleep. But since I had a baby 6 months ago, I knew that my sleep was going to be in the trash can. So I just took the Oura off, and I've realized over the past 6 months that I kind of know what's going on now. The insult of getting a really poor sleep score is not what I need right now, because I'm waking up with a baby and I don't have a choice. So, it's actually, it's been refreshing to move away from the wearable. But I think you and Matt talked about this on the podcast you did with him. I think it's really helpful initially to get some understanding and objective feedback from wearable data, labs, DNA, et cetera. But you can start to get the feel subjectively for where you're at, and you may or may not need the wearable long term.
Yeah, something to think about, definitely, whether you want to continue to get that data, whether you need that objective data on a regular basis. Is it there to keep you honest, or is it there to make you feel terrible about yourself? Is the question that you should ask yourself, and decide if it's really worth it for you or not. And maybe a good question to talk with the health coach or with your physician about too, because they can give you a lot of insight around that as well. What about fitness, Trey? What do you do to stay fit? You're always in the gym, pumping iron, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always kind of had a passion and enjoyed lifting weights. Just traditional strength training is something I enjoy. One thing that I've really despised over the years is just traditional cardio, like going out for a jog. If it's longer than 5 minutes, I'm done with it. I hate it. And so finding ways to get cardio that are enjoyable for me has been a challenge. So, the weight training, it comes, right, at 3-4 days a week, sometimes 5, different types of programming, depending on what my goals are at the time. But that's kind of a constant. For me, the thing that I've fallen in love with recently is rucking. I find that going out in nature with weight on my back feels like work, kind of feels like weight training. I can get distracted by nature and not just be, on a jog trying to listen to a podcast and distract myself from what I'm doing. I'm actually present, and that makes a big difference for me. It's good for my mental health for sure. No headphones, no phone with me, just weight on my back in the woods, and that feels amazing. So finding things that I'm passionate about or that bring me joy and improve my fitness it's kind of come to me naturally recently, but it's been a huge benefit for me. And then the other thing is sports activities, finding competition. I've recently been playing in like a pickup basketball game on Wednesdays. and then trying to get in and play pickleball with the folks here in Lexington as often as I can. And both of those are just enjoyable and give me some of that fitness benefit.
Yeah, a little bit of fitness benefit for pickleball. Depends on whether you're playing singles or doubles, I think. But it's interesting. Rucking's kind of like that. It's like that sneaky cardio. It's just people don't think about it as cardio, but it's 100% zone 2 cardio. I mean, you're usually in that range with your heart rate as long as you're doing some elevation change. But people sort of think about it as it's almost like think about it as strength training. It is kind of strength training to some extent, but I think more so cardio than anything else. So it's a nice option for people who hate running or hate biking or doing the more traditional types of cardio for sure.
Yeah, and just as a mental framework for me, I'm thinking, if I can get a couple hours of zone 2 in per week, 3 or 4 days of weight training, and then one kind of more intense day where like an hour of singles pickleball against somebody that's pretty good, right? Where we're kind of sprinting back and forth across the court at times, or just the basketball that I mentioned. That's a good week for me. I've got some moderate to high intensity in there, zone 2 for a couple of hours, and then the weight training, and I feel pretty good in that range, and also can with my nutrition be able to meet body composition goals just by maintaining that programming.
Trey, what's been your biggest struggle with fitness? What thing has really sort of been like the thorn in your side in your fitness journey?
I would say probably low back pain. I don't know if it actually, really don't know the source. I think there's some sort of familial component because my grandfather and my mom both have had issues with lower back spasms over the years. And, even I remember playing high school football and it wouldn't come from like an injury or an impact. It was just like a back spasm, maybe from lifting that week or whatever. And I would have to have work by the trainers all the time just to be able to play and stay on the practice field. And then, as I lifted heavier, through my college years and in my early adult years, I noticed that I was just very predisposed to any misses in form for like a deadlift or something like that. If I got too high of a weight, or if I got too exhausted, on a later set, an hour later, I would almost be unable to walk due to a back spasm. It was painful. And I'd never really been one for prehab, warming up, through your teen years. You're just kind of resilient. And that back pain is really, like a thorn in my side, like you said. And then, as I aged, I kind of grew wiser and started to address it before it was a problem instead of just dealing with it and getting a massage after it happened. Really it's been pretty simple for me to keep it at bay. It is just moving more regularly during the day. I've been doing some dead hangs. The McGill 3 has been really beneficial, just really activation of the posterior chain on a regular basis and opening up that kind of anterior hip, and making sure, the anterior portion of the hips and pelvis aren't getting too tight, has really mitigated it pretty well. I know that's not the solution for everybody, but I think, in modern society, we're so predisposed to sitting in cars, sitting at our desks, in that seated kind of hunched over position, looking at our phones or our computers, that it really takes some pointed, intentional intervention to balance that posterior, anterior, kind of, and honestly, too, as an aside, I think body work is really important, given the fact that we're not out hunting and gathering all the time and moving as regularly, whether it's you doing foam rolling at home or going in and getting body work from a massage therapist. I think we need that in our modern society.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. I think so much back pain these days comes straight from tight hip flexors from sitting too much, sitting at a computer desk. And obviously you can do some things that are relatively easy to fix that, like a standing desk, for example. I've actually, as I feel your pain, I've been struggling with back pain for a few years now. And the thing that's really worked for me has been just incorporating yoga more regularly into my daily life. just getting that mobility and that opening of the anterior chain for sure seems to help a lot.
Yeah, yoga's been great for me too.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about nutrition. I know you mentioned, we talked a little bit about your uric acid struggles, but what sort of diet are you eating right now? What have you found works best for you?
Yeah. So I mentioned the struggle of like under stress or strain. I tend to just lose weight and lose muscle mass. So, I would classify having a new baby at home as increased stress or strain. And I hadn't been on the scale in a while. Yeah. I hadn't been on the scale in a while, and I jumped on the scale one day and it was 159. And I guess my cruising weight or my ideal weight's probably about 170. It's kind of where I like to be, where I feel good. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started to think, I logged food, I hopped on Chronometer, did a couple days, and it was like 1,500, 1,600 calories. And I was kind of, appalled that I had accidentally gotten down to that low of a caloric intake, but it was just, busy nights, sleepless nights lead to me not having a appetite early in the morning. I'll just skip breakfast and snacks altogether, go to, straight to lunch. And sometimes that was occurring at 1 or 2. And then I was trying to eat as much as I could once I started eating. And so I was unintentionally doing 16 hours of fasting, maybe more, 18 on occasion. And most recently, I decided, I'm going to put on some weight and I'm going to really focus on this. So, being intentional, about, consumption of calories early. I'm trying to get, a couple of eggs, maybe 3, 4, in early in the morning. And then I'm doing a protein shake with some carbohydrates, after exercise in the morning. And then a lunch, which is typically leftovers from the night before. And our food choices are primarily, whole foods, right? We're eating fish, lean meats, and then a couple vegetables and maybe a complex carbohydrate, brown rice, quinoa, sweet potato, something like that. So I'm having something like that at dinner and then the next day's lunch. And I've just found over the years that if I can make really good choices on our grocery list for dinner that week, my wife and I kind of collaborate that I can make the lunch the next day the same thing. And then the breakfast is almost static, right? So I don't have any decisional fatigue around my nutrition. We don't have any extensive meal prep with 2 little kids, and it's just been a routine that's worked really well for us. Dinner doesn't have to be perfect for me. I try to get the daytime perfect, and then the weekends, I'm trying to be really consistent with my mornings, keep with the eggs, keep with the protein shake, make sure I'm getting my protein early. And then if there's an event going on that day and we're at a friend's birthday party or something, I'm going to eat pizza, right? I'm not going to make my nutrition so strict that I can't be a part of normal societal events. And I found that to be the healthiest, both mentally and physically for me.
You mean as long as it's dairy-free, grain-free pizza without any meat on it, just vegetables and tomato sauce, right?
No,
you're not talking about real pizza,
straight,
are you?
I don't, talking straight $5 pizzas, man. As many sauces as I can get.
What? So how about mental health, Trei? What do you do to take care of your mental health? How do you keep that in check?
Yeah. It's funny. This has been an interesting journey for me. I always viewed, so incorrectly, I guess, meditation and mental health is you improve it and then it stays there. So you can get healthier, you can get your mental health healthier, you can get to a healthier mental state, and then you're going to just, not have anxiety, not have insomnia,
it's like
not
muscles.
have stress.
You just put on muscles, and then you never have to lift weights again once you have the muscles.
Yeah. It was such a silly view looking back on it. But I don't know how common that is or not, but the thing that I've realized for my stress and mental health is that it's a reflection of my physical health, and my physical health is often a reflection of my mental health. So whenever I'm taking care of one or the other, say I'm managing my stress appropriately, I have a nice routine of mindfulness and breath work, I'm coming at life from a place of love and compassion, I'm a lot more likely to stick with my physical nutrition, exercise routines, right? I'm doing those things from a place of love for myself and for those around me. And then whenever I'm exercising and eating well and doing well with sleep, I'm a lot more likely to maintain my mental health practices, right? My breath work, I'm motivated to do that. I have a clearer mind. My mental health has just improved when I exercise. I think there's good science behind that, obviously. So they're reflections of one another, and they don't really, you can't have one without the other, in my opinion. Some people are probably able to get into the gym and crush it and eat well and be really anxious still, or not in a good place mentally, but, to reach the kind of, I don't know if it's an ease. Life isn't ever easy, right? But like a place where you're kind of feeling like you're in flow and can accept the ups and downs of life, it does require both, in my opinion, both physical and mental.
Yeah, they sort of feed off one another, right? Like it's like you can't have one without also having the other to some extent.
And
I see what you're saying there. Yeah. And what does that?
Yeah, and
what does that look like? What does that look like for you on a daily basis? Like, are you a meditator? Are you journaling? Like, how do you go about sort of feeding that mental aspect?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's really pretty simple. I wake up, and the first thing I do is resonance breath before I really even roll over or open my eyes. Often, I'm really predisposed to waking up and having anxiety about what the day will bring. And I don't feel that way as much anymore, but, previously I would want to, like, if my natural inclination would be wake up, grab the phone, look at my calendar to make sure I'm mentally prepared for everything that's going to happen that day. Check and make sure that there's no text message or email that is, a burning fire that I need to address. And those are the thoughts that still occur most of the time. What's going to happen today? What's going on? And if I just stop immediately and breathe and just be present with my breath, so it's a meditation and a breath work, and I'll do about 5 to 10 minutes of resonance, which is it's kind of actually Dr. Leolaga's protocol, where I'm doing a little bit shorter inhale than exhale. Because I feel that anxiety as I wake up. I just feel like my body get ramped up. I can feel the cortisol release, and trying to downregulate the sympathetic nervous system almost immediately upon awakening. And then I get into my normal hygiene, drink some water, and kind of do what I talked to you about as far as like delaying caffeine intake, having that morning routine that then leads to good sleep that night. And then at nighttime, it's the same thing. It's resonance breath, laying in bed, no screens. And I'll do that actually almost kind of like a yoga nidra until I fall asleep. Kind of get like corpse pose, just laying flat on the back and do resonance breath until I kind of feel that dreamy state come over me. And then I'm, roll over and go to sleep, which is a really nice way to fall asleep. And oftentimes, during the day, I've worn HRV trackers. I've, real time, like a polar strap. And I've been able to kind of determine times and get biofeedback from the device, but then correlate that with sensations in the body that I'm able to kind of determine like when I really need to back off. It's interesting the times you see your HRV plummet. You wouldn't necessarily expect it, breath holds during email. It's well documented on the podcast circuit out there. A lot of people talk about it, but once you actually see it and in your data and realize when you're doing it, you can stop and actually breathe at a regular rate or an expanded rate, and that's been really helpful. So I like breath a lot. And then I wouldn't say I'm a regular meditator, but what I would say is I get in the sauna regularly and I try to meditate when I'm there. And it's not really a formal practice as much as it is just trying to be present and be the observer of my thoughts rather than letting the thoughts run wild. And I find that to be very helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Trei. Well, let's talk about some more fun things. We like to ask on these podcasts some silly questions. Here's one for you. what would your patients be surprised to know about you? And if you say anything other than give us a extended description of your of the trailer that you built for Kentucky games, then I'm going to make you tell us about that instead.
Well, I don't know if you're going to ask me about hobbies or things I'm passionate about outside of like work and family.
Yeah, that one's next. Yeah.
Okay, well, if that was next, it's definitely UK football and spending time with my family at tailgates. So I think for this question, something surprising would actually be I love bluegrass music, and so I'm from Eastern Kentucky. My dad actually started a bluegrass festival called Rudy Fest. A guy's named Rudy. It was a fundraiser for my like little league football team when I was in third grade. And so they started this, this music festival, this bluegrass festival, and it turned out to be like 10, 15 years later, it's huge. It won, I think, the Country Music Awards Bluegrass Festival of the Year at one point. There's hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the country that bring RVs in and stay there. People come from outside the country to see it. So I think my passion for bluegrass music and the kind of family roots I have in that area is something that would be unexpected. And then we can go ahead and jump to the tailgate trailer.
Just to be fair though, I'm not sure that a boy from growing up in Eastern Kentucky who likes bluegrass is like surprising. I don't know.
Well, yeah, if they didn't know, my patients don't all know I'm from Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky for that matter.
Okay, fair. All right, fair.
Yeah. That's not surprising. That's standard. Standard issue.
Totally standard. Yeah, standard issue. Eastern Kentuckian.
Yeah.
All right. So, what about how you value your time? What do you spend time doing when you're not working? What are some of your hobbies and interests?
Mm-hmm. Well, we can talk about sports because I think that there's something. I'll just go there first. I think sports kind of get a bad rap sometimes. They're quote unquote pointless. My wife asked me the other day. She's like, you and Matt Dawson, our CEO, we were at a game and he was sitting in front of us for UK basketball. And she was like, you guys are cheering like crazy and you guys all talk about like all the purpose in life and all this and you care about these sports. Why? And I said, oh, I don't really care about the outcome of the game that much. I want my team to win and it's fun. But the joy and excitement you get with a group of people that all have a similar interest and that can get together and be excited about something that's unifying is really fun for me. And I think it's kind of missing in our society today to have a group of people that you kind of have community and you're able to share life with and the fun parts of life, the light and easy parts of life. So I find that in being a sports fan. And my family are all big UK fans, so we get together on the weekends in the fall, and we all cook food and hang out, listen to music, and spend time together for like 8 hours on a Saturday before the game starts. We have a pretty immaculate tailgate trailer that we built. My dad built it himself, and it's awesome. It's got TVs and places to cook, all the stuff.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of this thing. It is more than awesome. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then
I think
it's awesome.
too, Mike. Yeah, the thing too, just on a day-to-day basis, the important parts of my life are spending time with the people I love, and it doesn't have to be anything special. I love being outside. I love taking my two sons outside. One's 6 months, so he gets toted around. But if Asher and I, my 4-year-old, if we're just kind of hopping on rocks, walking on down trees, looking at different leaves, checking out birds, using the Picture This app to see what kind of plants, we found, that's fun. Watching, the wonder and awe of life through his eyes. You wrote a note yesterday that was like so perfect. I've been talking to a few of my mentors about that, seeing life through your child's eyes, and your email was well timed. I really, really love that, and it helps bring back kind of that sense of awe and wonder to me, is seeing life through their eyes and appreciating the world around us.
Well said, man. Well, Trey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, sharing a little bit about yourself, your own personal health journey, and a little bit about what makes you tick. I know all of your patients are going to enjoy hearing this, and I'm sure everyone else as well. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Hey everybody, a quick note about our precision medicine training program. It's been a really popular course. We're constantly hiring health coaches and physicians, but we're only hiring them as we grow if they're trained in precision medicine. You don't get that in medical school or other places. And so we've developed this training program, and we've completely revamped it recently. It's a lot more robust. So now there's still over 50 hours of live synchronous training. There's also all the asynchronous credit, over 50 hours of content. And as a physician, you get about 50 hours of AMA Category 1 CME credit, which is a nice benefit. For the health coaches going through the training program, it's now accredited by the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching. So graduates are going to meet the requirement to sit for the board exam and become board certified health coaches. So there's a lot of benefits to that, not just the certification, but also when it comes to things like insurance reimbursement. So it's a really robust program. If you're a physician, a nurse practitioner, a PA, or someone that just wants to be a health coach, it's open to all of those categories. There's the 6-month program that's kind of the full program. And then we also have just a fundamentals of precision medicine course, which is completely on your own. It's online. It's all asynchronous. You still get the 50 hours of AMA Category 1, but it's self-paced. And you still have access to the online community, but not all the synchronous lectures as well. So if you're interested in checking that out, go to wildhealth.com/education. And we'd love to have you as part of our next class.